Alright guys, in this vehicle specific video, we're going to be doing the front doors on the 2019 F-350. It's the same window style as the F-150, the F-250, the F-350. They're all the same. They have this angle on the bottom edge, so I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Let's get to the prep, turn the ignition on, and you're going to want to trick the door so you don't hear that door chime. So we'll go ahead and wipe the outside, and then I'll go over the gasket removal on the inside. So to take out the lower weather stripping, all you have to do is pull back on the door panel, but before you do that, you want to make sure the lock pin is in the down lock position, because if it's up and you pull back, you end up bending the rod and actually bending the lock pin itself. So make sure that's locked. Then you can grab the top of the panel and just roll it back up to the middle half. It will not release here. It will only release in the back. And you'll realize that this little clip here, you're going to want to pay attention to when we reinstall the panel. The main thing is having that aligned so the panel goes back on correctly. So keep paying attention to that for when we go and put it back together. But once you have the top of the panel, the rear half pulled back, you're going to take your gasket stick, put it under the gasket, pull it up. Then we're going to release the pressure from the gasket by pulling back on the panel. If the pin pops out, that's okay. We can pop that back in. But the main key here is releasing the pressure from the weather stripping so that we can pull it straight back and out. It is a little tough to take out. And when we do put it back in, we're going to spray soapy water in the channel here so that it slides on the metal back into place, because there is a lot of pressure here. So in the meantime, let's put that lock pin back in so we don't have to worry about that. You can see here, you can just bend the panel and place it back into the hole here, and that'll be back in place. We'll go ahead with the inside prep, and then we'll lay the bulk material out on the outside. All right, now that we have the whole inside cleaned, we'll wipe the bottom remainder of the window after rolling it up. Spray it up with soapy water. And with this truck, we're going to be doing 20% Suntech Standard Pro. I have a 40-inch roll because this is larger than 20 because of this downward gap here. So we're going to use a 40-inch roll sideways and roll it onto the window. There's not many fingers, so you don't have to worry about shrinking. We will have to push down a couple fingers, but nothing serious to need to shrink it. Since it is going to be sideways, you know that you can't shrink window film front to back. You can only shrink it up and down. But we're going to roll this out. Always make sure you leave enough extra, but not too much. The last thing you want to do is be short with material. And the main thing we're going to do here is overlap all the edges, because we got to cut the bottom, we got to cut the front. Of course, we have to cut the top and the back, but the first ones we're going to cut is going to be the bottom edge and the front edge. So we'll overhang those, mount it in place so that it doesn't move while we cut it. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the front edge first. I'll rip that material away. Cut the excess off the top just so that's out of the way. And then we'll cut the bottom edge. So this is where it gets a little tricky. And these doors can be a little bit more on the harder side because of this cut that you have to do. You want to relieve the pressure from the back and lay the front in. So the back will be away like so. We'll start cutting the front from the front to the back. And as you do that, you want to lift the back up so that as you cut, it simply falls down into place. Now, if you find this a little complicated, just re-watch that, put the video on slow motion, and watch how the window film falls into place as you lift the back up. That's the simple method to this. Once you have that bottom edge cut, it's pretty much just like doing any other door. So we have the front cut, the bottom edge cut, we're gonna release the squeegee mount, and then we're gonna shift this forward, as well as overhang the bottom by a 1/2 inch. So we'll go ahead and shift it forward. We'll lift the bottom material up and pull it down, paying close attention to not skew the window film too much. We want to keep that front edge shifted the same amount and the bottom edge overhanging. Once we have that overhanging and the front edge shifted forward about 1/4 inch, mount it in place, and then we'll go ahead and cut the back edge. Since this is so high up, I'm going to start from top to bottom, because from going bottom to top, I might change my angle too much with the tall window. So I'll start from top, come down, making sure the material lays into place, and then we'll go ahead and rip that away. You can see that I didn't cut all the way to the bottom because I can clean that up after I pull the film off. So let's roll the window down and cut the top edge. Pulling the bottom away so it doesn't catch. We'll mount the top in place. And we'll start from front to back, just like any other top edge of a roll down window. Once you have the top edge cut, we can lay this so that we can trim up all the edges. The front and rear tops, we'll have to do a continuation with a straight edge, just like any other roll down window. With this back top edge, you want to create a nice and tight radius. There is no radius on the actual glass, but the reason we round that out is so it doesn't peel if it ends up catching onto the gasket rolling up and down the window. And then we have the front top edge here. We'll do a continuation of the top and round out into the front. And then what we have left is the bottom corners. Remember the back one, we had to do a slight continuation with a tight radius. And then the front corner, we'll just make that nice and tight. Since we do have extra material on the bottom, it is okay to make a larger radius. And a larger radius reduces the chances of peeling over the course of time. So once we have all the edges cleaned up, we'll spray the window up with soapy water. Lay it about 1 inch from the top, overhanging on the back edge. Mount it in place. After we mount this in place, we're going to roll the window up to the position we're going to want to install at, wiping the top edge to remove any debris. So we'll go ahead and roll this up. When you're bottom loading, you may know this already, but the higher the window is, the easier the installation is, because the more glass is exposed and the less you have to drop down into the door. So we'll leave it about there. We have about an inch gap on the top. We'll do our spray squeegee spray, rinsing down the bottom, down the sides, lubricating the center. Take our 5.5 inch yellow turbo, front to back overlapping strokes. Once you've covered the whole window, go down the back edge. And then we'll flush down the back, across the bottom, down the front, and lubricate the center. We'll grab the clear release. There's different methods to removing the release liner, whichever you feel more comfortable. But since we are bottom loading, we're going to remove the full release liner. We'll grab the material from the bottom corner. And just like any other roll down window, we're going to drop the bottom front corner in first. Get that down into place, keeping the back away. Getting the whole front edge in between the gasket and the glass. And then we'll lay the back down and move that into place. Making sure the film is uniform on the glass. And then we'll lay that in place and do the final positioning. The idea is to get as tight as possible without overlapping the top edge. If you're just starting off, don't overthink this process. Don't try to get too close, because then you'll end up overlapping and it'll absolutely ruin the job that you just did by trying to overachieve. So once we have that lined up, we'll do a few light squeegee strokes to get the majority of that water out. The window film will move as you squeegee it, so just reposition it as you go. Make sure there's no gaps on the back edge either. Once we have that lined up and it's not moving much anymore, we'll do the second hard press with the squeegee. I like to go front to back, overlapping strokes like when I cleaned it. Making sure that it's not moving, which it is. The colder it is, the more chances that the film will move as you're squeegeeing it. Just pay close attention. Once you have that mounted in place, we'll go over the top with the gray Lidco card wrapped in a Blue Hawk towel with the heat gun. The whole idea of this is to seal up that top edge, especially if it's cold outside. You want to seal up the top edge before you roll it up. That way there's no complications down the road with the window film peeling. Because once you roll it up, you don't want to roll it back down for another 2 days, which is what you will tell the customer. After you push it out with the towel, you can go ahead with the bare gray Lidco card just to get any excess liquid out by getting a harder, firmer press. Making sure that the back corner and the top corner on the front are laid down very firm, because that's where they have the most impact on the glass when you roll the window up. Give it a quick check from the outside. From the outside is where you'll see any imperfections. They'll show up as a white area. We look good. I did see a little tiny speck over here. A quick workout with the little chiseler, and that'll work out any tiny imperfections. We can roll the window up now and push out the bottom edge. When you squeegee the bottom edge, you're going to want to start higher than where you need to, about 5 inches higher. So I squeegeed up to here. I'm going to squeegee from here down, just to get any areas that I might have missed when I was squeegeeing out the top section. Go down the sides with the easy reach. Even though this edge on the F-150s and the F-350s is very open, you can even go into the sides with the gray Lidco card just to get a firmer press with a card that has less chances of scratching the glass or scratching the window film. Once we have the sides pushed out, the bottom squeegeed, we're going to spray it up again with soapy water. Take a minute to just wipe this panel down really quick. The vinyl on this, which is the fake leather, tends to have a reaction with the water and turn a little bluish. Once you dry it off and let it dry, it's not a problem. It doesn't damage it. But I do like to wipe the panel off as I go. So we have the bottom half squeegeed. We lubricated it again with the soapy water. We're going to use the heat gun and the gray Lidco card to get a final firm press on that bottom edge and seal it up. You want to pay attention here when you're using the heat gun. You want to have the heat gun up, pointed down to this area. You don't want to point it at the door panel, because this vinyl on here, like I said before, is very delicate. And if you let the heat gun sit on there, it will burn it. So you want to point the heat gun here, and the heat will travel down after it hits the window. Always have the heat gun higher and away from the door panel. Once we have the whole bottom edge pushed out, you want to go ahead and dry it. You can use the heat gun to dry the door panel off after you wipe it, but keep it far away. And pay attention that once the water evaporates, to pull the heat gun away, because the water is the only thing protecting the actual panel from the heat. Once the water evaporates, Don't heat it any further. So this window looks good. We'll check it from the outside. Heat it from the outside so the heat can transfer through the glass to the glue side of the film, evaporating water a lot quicker. Looking for any dust specks or lint or hair. All right, this window looks good, so let's go ahead with the gasket reinstallation. Like I said, you can spray soapy water in this channel of the gasket. The more the better, because it gets very stiff and it'll get stuck on the metal channel. So we'll go ahead and fill that with soapy water, pull the panel back, get the front edge in first. And once you have the front edge in, you want to give it a nice quick push. The faster you go, the easier it goes in. And as long as you have that soapy water in the gasket, it'll slide right down past this tight point all the way to the front. And our pin popped out again, so let's just pop that back in. That's good. And then, like I said before, this little clip here, you want to make sure that's lined up. If that's not lined up, the panel won't go back on correctly and it'll end up bending. So once that pin is lined up, or the clip is lined up, you can just go ahead and give the panel a smack right here, and it's back on. You can release the door lock pin, and if you're done with the car, obviously the latch will untrick when you pull the door handle. We'll give this a quick wipe down. And that is how you tint the front doors on a 2019 F-350. I'll see you guys in the next video.